To the newest GroundSwell webinar. We're glad you could join us. We're going to get into a few things today about how AI is helping the transition from ground to 2.0. Specifically, we're going to look at some of the things that GroundSwell alone can do. Then we're going to bring in our favorite friend, Toni, who will talk to you about hiring veterans and the value there for everyone involved. I'll be taking some questions, and then we'll invite you onto the Slack channel so you can continue the conversations there. We started Rising Tide in 2023. We were in many different verticals, handling same kinds of problems in route-based businesses. In 2024, we began the product that would become GroundSwell. GroundSwell is an AI-forward program that allows you to automate the nighttime operations, so the initial route construction. And this month, we have been unveiling our newest product that goes along with it. It's what we call infinite loop routing. It is the in-truck operations management, otherwise known as a turn-by-turn. And we'll have some, slides to show you on that, and how those two things interact to be able to automate an iterative process towards being able to completely automate your operations and reduce routes and account for new drivers and things like that. So lots of very interesting, exciting things to talk about. So I will hand it over to Scott Aronson. If you are a current customer of GroundSwell, you're very familiar with Scott. He worked with you side by side to get you comfortable with this solution. If you're not, Scott's a great guy who spent a lot of years in consulting and running his own businesses. So you're going to have a voice here that will resonate with you. So without further ado, I'll kick it over to Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. We're real excited to be here today to talk to the group. As Jeff said, the transition of the FedEx business is in flux, and the changes that are coming with moving from ground to network 2.0 are accelerating the need for better systems, faster digesting of information to make more accurate routes, and to be able to handle those throughout the day. I've been talking, and our team has been talking to folks across the country, and we kind of hear three types of feedback around that transition to 2.0. Of course, the routes are more complex. There's more density. The time sensitivity of the stops just make for a much more complicated routing and management systems required to make sure that all those needs are met. The second we hear is around geography. A lot of the changes are not just to moving from ground to 2.0, but also involve a geographic change, and therefore there's different areas to learn, different commercial businesses to learn, and really how all of that works. And the third area is maybe a combination of the first two, but that's driver frustration and more churn within the business. And so kind of with those as a backdrop, with the increased complexity, the geography changes, and the churn within the driver group, we really are excited of how GroundSwell can help with all of those pain points and can be driving efficiency during the process. And there's a couple things I just wanted to highlight specifically along that type of thinking. The first is stop accuracy. The GroundSwell platform estimates the actual delivery time for each stop. We're not just assuming a fixed 75-second time for each stop. We are looking at the type of stop, the number of packages, the cube, to estimate the specific time. What that allows us to do is to set up the route that can succeed. We're not building on a shaky platform by just making those estimates. And so that the time accuracy of the stops is a specific element within the GroundSwell platform that we really are excited about to help ISPs, BCs, drivers navigate this change. The second is time commitments and the ability to integrate how time commits, whether they be priority overnight, specifically 10:30s and noons are challenging, but also just commercial stop receiving hours that might be at certain addresses. All of that information can be loaded and handled during the initial configuration, or excuse me, the initial dispatch of your routes to make sure that you are built and ready for success the night before, but before the first driver leaves the route. And then geography, we talked about the changes in geography and the driver sentiment. Our platform is completely built off of road networks, and those road networks are updated regularly. Up to every week can make changes for particular gated communities you might not be able to get through, or just other changes as new roads are built and worked through. So we have an up-to-date road network that allow for geographic changes to be a natural component. And so as you're bringing new drivers on, or if drivers are in new areas because the conversion to 2.0 has moved into new zip codes, you don't have to wait months or years to build that expertise. Our system starts day one to have that knowledge and that expertise built. And so when you add all those up, the time accuracy of your stops, the time commitments for various windows, and then the geography knowledge, the platform that we're building and the routes that we're building are setting you up to succeed, from day one and the night before. And then on top of that, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but Jeff had mentioned the in-truck operation. Part of our in-truck turn by turn, which we call infinite loop routing, the infinite part of that is dynamic resequencing. And so after you build a very strong and accurate initial dispatch, our platform is resequencing throughout the day after each stop, asking itself the question, am I still going to the next stop? So when you put all of that together and you look at the conversion from ground to 2.0, the solution that we have allows you to have fewer missed time commits. It has routes that are built for success and hold up through the day. And the results that we're seeing are a mileage reduction of 15% and route reduction in time of 20 to 21 minutes. So when you put all of this together, we're building for success from day one. We're having a system that are able to resequence and adapt to unexpected changes throughout the day. And it's going to produce better mileage, a more stable workforce, and fewer fire drills throughout the day. So we are really excited to talk more about kind of what that looks like, specifically around the turn by turn and the resequencing and how that all works. But as Jeff said, I hope to meet more of you. Many of you I've already spoken to, but I hope to meet more of you as we're working specifically within your CSAs, and we can quickly show you how the platform works, how the routing takes into account the time specific, the road networks. And so I look forward to seeing many of you on calls as we move forward. And I will pass it over to our CTO, Craig, who's going to work through more of the details on how the system and platform operate.
All right, thanks, Scott. So my name is Craig Huber. As Scott said, I'm the CTO of Rising Tide, and a little bit about me, just to give you some background. About quite a few decades of experience in the technology industry, all around logistics and supply chain. Spent some time at Walmart working for Dell, and then just right before Rising Tide, I was running technology for a last mile big and bulky delivery provider We had services in nearly 100% of the zip codes in the United States. So I'm very, very familiar with the space, and learned quite a bit about the nuance of FedEx and taking my experience to bear here. So kind of following along with what Scott was articulating, I know a lot of you are moving to 2.0, have moved to 2.0, or planning to in the next couple of weeks or months as FedEx is accelerating that transition. And there are certainly challenges with the time criticals, right? I've heard quite a few anecdotes that, some are struggling to meet it. You feel like you're fending for yourselves. Some are at rock bottoms, ready to almost give up because they can't figure out how to make it work. They're honestly the tools that you have available to you now with DRO, with the current turn by turns, there's a challenges there. As you might have experienced in the past, DRO is not always the best at sequencing and can force you to run across town. So if you have a 1030 that it thinks you're going to miss, it's going to send your route all the way across town to grab it and then send you back. Obviously not optimal from a time or money or mileage standpoint. All these tools were built in the world where the ground world, where you just had to get it delivered by the end of the day, makes sense. But now you have to interweave some ground, some pickup, some arrival and departure windows. The complexity is getting larger and larger by the day because FedEx realizes they can offer different services for different people as long as people can get it delivered on at the time that they need to. So I think what I'm hearing a lot of is you're stuck trying to make it work with the tools that you have. Fortunately, with GroundSwell, we built this from the ground up to address these challenges. So I think as Jeff might have alluded to, we looked at this from the standpoint of, we don't care what business it is, it's delivering something, picking something up. There are appointment windows. In my big and bulky world, we had everything from a 2-hour window to a 4-hour window to 3 times a day windows. So everything we had scheduling. So I'm very familiar with the space of you have to meet those windows because the SLAs of the retailers, in this case FedEx, require you to hit those to get the scores that you need. So I tend to look at the FedEx spaces, kind of breaking it up a little bit into 3 different operational problems, if you will, the 3 different periods. So you have the nighttime planning, meaning, of course, you all know this is the DRO planning window. It's what's coming into the terminal, what stops are being assigned. Excuse me. And then the second sort of phase is what's happening in the morning. So after the sort plan is locked, things are changing past that lock, pickups are being added, drivers are calling out. FedEx is constantly changing, what the manifest might look like. There might be some, an exorbitant amount of IA packages coming in, and you're dealing with blown out trucks, right? And then the third is sort of the daytime operations, where we call them in truck, with your drivers. More new pickups are coming in, making sure the drivers execute the plans, making sure they're not scanning things incorrectly. So you got, again, 3 sort of independent chunks of time, if you will. Most of the other tools that we've seen only address the final chunk, right? So it's really they feel like they can't do anything with the night before, they can't do anything the day or in the morning loadout. They only deal with the sort of what happens in the turn by turn. So we looked at all this and said each one of them has its own set of challenges of data quality from FedEx. For example, in the DRO space, we've heard over and over that the data quality is pretty bad, and you could have swings of like 20% over one day and 20% under the next day. So, as we've looked into some of the challenges and how we can address some of these pain points, we've said, okay, we can make improvements in each one of these phases. So what we talk about, or I think Jeff might have alluded to, is our intelligent automation, which essentially is what automates the process of DRO. It does it in a way that you meet all your time criticals, properly balances the trucks, ensures that you have the best sequencing to save you money, time, and fuel. And I'll have Zach talk a little bit about how we balance that and how we do sequencing in a little bit. But after the process is set up, and kind of what Scott was talked to, is as we walk you through looking at your CSA, taking WAP data, and using actual historical data and running it through our AI to actually say, this is what your configuration should look like, then that's completely automated from there on out. So you shouldn't need to touch DRO. You get an email and a text after the nighttime run is complete. And if you like that dispatch, you don't need to do anything. Secondly, kind of getting back to the morning loadout, once the manifests are in FCC, with a click of a button in GroundSwell, manifests are automatically loaded from FCC into our platform, and your routes will be updated with any new pickups or deliveries or manifest changes that will happen after the lock. And then finally, when the drivers are ready to go, they'll use our turn-by-turn app to complete the deliveries. And we call this infinite loop routing, which means after every event that happens on the road, doesn't matter whether it's a pickup, a delivery, a delay by a particular driver, our system's going to ensure that each driver is still on the most efficient path, because routes are not static in our system. They're always looking for a better way to accomplish the goal that you set and meet the time critical needs. And again, Nels will talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So what we're really trying to get to is we looked at this problem as a whole of how do we affect change as early as possible in the process, instead of relying on the bad data and the turn by turn, so that we can give you an outcome that is more seamless, easier to run, and easier to operate. Zach, I'm going to bring you on here to share a few of the real world examples of some of our customers and what they're doing and how they're seeing value in our system.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. So I'm sharing screen right now. I want to give a big shout out to HB Ground Inc. out of Colorado Springs, Colorado, and their owner, Nathan Heater. This is a real client of ours. And this is their data from today that we're looking at, that GroundSwell ran automatically and planned last night. And I'm going to talk about 3 features for the nightly dispatching that GroundSwell brings to the table to help with the massive time critical influx that CSAs experience when they make the transition to Network 2.0. For many of our clients, they see the number of time criticals that they have to service every day increase as much as a factor of 3x or 5x. So it's a huge increase in the number of time criticals on a daily basis. So the first of those 3 features related to our time criticals for nighttime dispatching is the ability to see with greater fidelity your own data and your own time criticals in the GroundSwell platform. So just to give a little bit of the lay of the land here at what we're looking at in Colorado Springs, HB Ground serves the downtown area of Colorado Springs, which includes these 3 routes right in the middle of town. We kind of keep those routes locked in such a way that they stay in this area, but other routes can come in to help them out if needed. And then there's routes on the west side, routes on the east side. And in GroundSwell, when it comes to displaying your time criticals, we have the ability to display not merely the stops that have a time critical window, but also to distinguish them by whether they have an early arrival window or a late arrival window. And you can configure those values. So for this example, I'm going to show early arrivals with an airplane icon. That's anything that's got to arrive before 12 noon local time. And late arrivals, anything that has to be serviced after 4 p.m. Again, local time, mountain time in Colorado. And then everything else is going to get a clock icon. And so when I turn this on, the map's going to get a little bit busy here. Now, HB Ground today is doing over 2,100 stops. Of their 2,100 stops, we're going to bounce back and forth a little bit here from our routes table. 801 of those stops are time critical. Some attendees who have not made the switch to 2.0 might have just fallen out of their seat at that number. They might not be able to imagine, whoa, 800 time criticals in a day. And not only 800, but that 800 is more than 1/3 of all of the stops that have to be done in this CSA. So, it's a really intense demand when you make the switch to 2.0. So GroundSwell puts the display information in your hands, and you can start to look geographically and figure out, okay, do I have, concentrations of late time criticals, which would be these moon icons that you can see on the map? Or do I have concentrations of early time criticals, the airplane icons, right? or are they spread out all over the place, like is the case for HB ground here? And that can, firstly, just help you get a grasp on how you're going to approach the transition. The second feature that we have to aid you in your nightly planning is the ability to specify particular routes that are able to handle either the early stops or the late stops or the time critical stops in general. And so in the case of HB Ground, the strategy that they use is they have 2 routes each weekday that stay out later. Everybody dispatches at the same time from the terminal, but 2 routes that stay out later each day of the week. And those routes get paid a little bit more on the day that they stay out later. And they handle all of the late pickups that have to be done. So in the case of today, Wednesday, June 3rd, those 2 routes that stay out later are 642, which is this purple route, and 649, which is this greenish color. I'll call it mint. And if we zoom in on these moon icons, you'll see that most of the moon icons are colored purple or mint, but here's a moon icon that's colored tan, indicating 641. What's going on here is there are actually 2 different stops at the same address. One of them is a stop that does not have a late pickup, and that's the stop that's being handled by 641. And then there's another stop that does have the late pickup. That's the one that's being treated by 649. Again, leveraging those capabilities, that feature that enables us to say certain routes can handle the late pickups on certain days. There's a couple other examples in here where we've got multiple vehicles going to the same stop because of time critical windows. And so here's an example where 649 is going to make a pickup that has to be done between 4 and 5 p.m. But 647 is going there in order to take care of an express delivery that must be done by 10:30 a.m. And that's a segue for me into the third feature that GroundSwell offers to automatically help with your time critical influx in 2.0. And that's what we call time critical balancing. So in GroundSwell, our system not only can balance the routes based on vehicle capacity, route duration, stop count limits, but also whether or not you're going to hit all of your time critical stops. And so we have a couple examples in this dispatch today where GroundSwell automatically chose to swap a stop from one route to another and did so because that stop was not going to be serviced. Its time critical window was not going to be serviced by the route that it was on prior. And so this is an example right here. There's a space in the route plan for today where there's no anchor area assigned. And so GroundSwell initially assigned this brown stop right here to 646, which is the blue route on the screen. But GroundSwell then, and that was based on the road network, just how long it took to drive from the nearest neighboring stops to get to this stop. GroundSwell then identified, wait a minute, 646 is not going to be able to meet that arrival window. And so it automatically reassigned that stop to 636 instead to make sure that all of those time criticals are being hit. And so again, coming back to our routes table here, GroundSwell is aware of all of the time critical stops that come in your data payload when it's building your nightly route plans. And it is taking stock of whether it thinks it's going to miss any time critical stops. In this example, GroundSwell saying, we're not going to miss any of them. We're going to be able to service all of these time critical stops. In this example that I just talked to here, this was two different routes that were able to handle express. One of the routes was not going to get there in time though, and so the neighboring route was reassigned to help out. Up here is an example where GroundSwell initially had this stop on 642, which, remember, 642 and 649 are the routes for HB Ground today that allow them to service the late pickups. It was originally on 642. GroundSwell recognized, hey, 642 is not going to be able to get there for this late arrival window, given the other late arrival windows that it has to do on the west side of town and in the downtown area. And so it automatically reassigned this stop to 649 instead. Just to give another strategy plug, I mentioned the strategy from HB Ground is to rotate which drivers on which days of the week stay late. Another strategy that we've seen across the nation for handling these late pickups. You're going to see a lot more late pickups in 2.0 than you do currently. The other strategy that we see that's very prevalent across the nation is having certain routes that dispatch later in the day. And so it might be two routes that are designated as the late pickup routes. And maybe you have all of your earlier routes dispatch at 8:30 or 9:30. And then you have your late pickup routes dispatch at something like 11 or 11:30. GroundSwell can support any of those kinds of setups. And again, leverage our features to be able to automatically reassign stops between routes, to have neighbors come help out, to make sure you're hitting all of your time criticals. So Craig, that's my piece on the nightly dispatching. Last thing to mention, I think, is which Nels is going to touch on, is the sequencing and the resequencing. Our nightly sequencing is done aware of the time criticals, and it sequences your routes accordingly. And then, as you're going to hear on the turn by turn, we continually resequence throughout the day to make sure that you continue to hit all of your time criticals as your drivers get ahead of schedule, or if they start to fall behind schedule. Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Zach. So I don't know if anybody was on our last webinar. If not, I'd suggest you get on Slack and review it. But I had shared a little bit about how AI can help you accelerate your dashboarding with MyGroundBiz automation, kind of taking control of your own DSW data and doing it all for free, or nearly free. And I think one of the problems that we've realized is today FedEx gives you almost a dozen systems that you need to use on a daily basis to understand, how do I run my business? Am I profitable? What issues do I have? So you're constantly looking at multiple data sources like DRO, DSW, FCC, my biz account, GroundCloud, or whatever turn by turn you might be using today. So one of the goals of GroundSwell is to give you sort of a one-stop shop to get a single place of information, or a single place to get all of your information, a single pane of glass. So I'm sure for those who were early GroundCloud users, remember that you had to go into FCC, download the manifest, upload it in GroundCloud, or even today, if you're doing any sort of payroll, you're going into DSW, downloading getting your charge sheets from MyGroundBiz, downloading those, uploading them into some payroll software. So that's part of our mission, is we want to make sure we can do that for you, really give you that single pane of glass, as I said, of operating your business. So in the spirit of that mission, we build mechanisms for DRO, for FCC. So when you're in our system, when it's time to bring in those FCC manifests, you actually just go into our system and click that one button in GroundSwell, and automatically download all of your manifest data in the FCC, import it into GroundSwell, and you're ready to go. And this works relatively well. And most of unfortunately, FCC can be a bit finicky and slow. Sometimes it doesn't work right during heavy periods of the day. So, we do need your help ensuring we get the best possible experience for GroundSwell to give that to you. So do need your help. If you do join our system and you see value in it, and you're really, saying, hey, I want to keep this momentum going, we need you to help with reaching out to the SPS reps, spread the word about, the value you're receiving from GroundSwell and how it's improving your FedEx business. Because as we get better and better data connections from FedEx. Your experience continues to get better, get simpler. And we're not only trying to make you more money, save, miles on vehicles, save time, but really also give you a better quality of life, right? So less time you're spending up late night, deal with DRO, less time you're dealing with issues in the morning or resolving driver issues or change pickups, misscans, right? All these things that kind of happen that kind of cause that chaos that FedEx, everybody's used to. Just because the chaos is common doesn't mean that it's right or uncorrectable. And that's what we're here for. We're working tirelessly to help you get there. So we got you covered. Nels, I want to kind of turn it over to you, give it a little bit more insight into our infinite loop routing and our return by turn.
All right, thanks very much, Craig.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And I'll be giving us a little bit of a walkthrough through the new product that Craig mentioned, the turn-by-turn infinite loop routing. We're very excited to be starting some customer pilots with this product now. And real quick, actually, before I jump into the turn-by-turn, I'll just show you what Craig was talking about. In terms of importing manifests from FCC, it's very straightforward. In the GroundSwell platform, there's an option to import from FCC, and you click the orange button, and that's it. It'll pull in the manifests. We will automatically match the driver name to the driver in GroundSwell based on the name convention in FCC, but you can also manually assign a driver as well so that they can access the routes through the infinite loop routing product. So first question, how do I get the mobile app? Well, fortunately, it's live in both app stores. So I just pulled up the Apple App Store for an example. And if you just search GroundSwell in either app store, it should pull right up. Here we go, second option here in the Apple App Store, GroundSwell by Rising Tide. And so you can download it directly from there. So in order to do a bit of a walkthrough, I'm going to switch over here where I can show you some of the screens. I'm going to go in kind of reverse order. There's three main options from the homepage here on the app. One is to go into your daily route. Second is scheduling. The third is the user settings. I just want to highlight something in the user settings. We've had people describe before, customers describe before, the importance of having different map styles for driving at night versus the day, or different map style preferences. So that is an option right out of the gate for drivers. They can pick different map styles to accommodate their preferences there and kind of time of day. There is also scheduling functionality. This is not necessary to work through because we'll automatically assign the driver from the FCC import, but the scheduling function is available in the app as well. And then kind of most critically here is the routes option. So this is what a driver is going to go into every day when they're running a route. They're going to tap routes. And then the first thing they'll see here is a manifest. That's probably similar to other turn-by-turns that your drivers are using if they're using a turn-by-turn. There's a map instance here with pins on the map for each stop. And then there's also a list display down here so they can review their manifest. It is possible for drivers to move a stop around in the sequence. So we know sometimes they'll get sort of an unexpected, very large package that fills the aisle of the truck. And it's important for them to be able to get that off the truck quickly so that they don't have to climb over it all day long. And so with the ability to reorder their sequence, they can go ahead and pull that to the front of the route. And that works really well. I will mention, we do kind of reserve the right to control the sequence to make sure we don't hit those time criticals. So they can move things up to the front and influence the start, but we still will make sure that they're going to hit their time criticals even if they try to move sequence around on their route a bit. So once they've reviewed the manifest, they can go ahead and start their route, and we're going to start at their current location. And then there's a turn-by-turn skin in the app, so they'll have the full turn-by-turn experience telling them where to go. At the bottom, there's just a semi-transparent window here that's showing them the arrival time, how far out they are, how much mileage is left until they reach their next stop. If they drag that up, there's a handful of options here. One is a notes feature, and this is very handy to have address-specific notes for things like apartment codes or gate codes or anything like that they're going to have to revisit over and over again. Those can be stored in the app, so it's very easy for them to have that information available and not have to call the BC or dig it up from somewhere. So that's a nice feature. I also like our break feature. We have a feature for drivers to be able to take a break. And then what we'll do is we'll give them an interface where they can sort of ask, or we'll ask them what they want to do. Do they need to get gas? Do they need some food? They need a rest stop, something like that. And they can go ahead and plug in there, and we'll give them options that are very nearby to their route. So then we'll reroute them to, get a sandwich or something, and then they can continue and resume their route with the minimal interruption of time. So those are some handy kind of in-app or in-route features. Then once they've arrived at the stop, they'll tap the I've arrived button, and then they'll be able to see the details of their current stop there. So once they deliver the package, they tap next stop, and then they're right back into the next stop on their route. And as multiple of the earlier presenters have mentioned, Scott and Craig and Zach, I think all mentioned resequencing, but it really is a powerful feature that we're very excited about. This ability to really improve your 2.0 compliance by resequencing at every stop, where our algorithms will review the remaining stops on the route and adjust the order to make sure that you can hit those time critical stops. And I think Scott also mentioned at the beginning, just the importance of the dwell time estimates that feed into that. And that is really, really important for helping us to hit that accurately instead of just a standard average 75 seconds per stop. We know how long it's going to take. And then another benefit, I think, of the app is it enables you to experience the full mileage savings of the whole platform, which are about 15%. And we see that very consistently. And some of those savings are generated by the dispatch, by moving stops around to be most efficiently dispatched. And some are generated by the sequencing. And so using the turn by turn here enables you to capture that full 15%. And just to wrap up, there's two kind of common questions that I hear. One is, how do I see the status of the stops in GroundSwell in the manager portal? So here's an import from FCC that's an example. And there's a couple places you can tell. There's a high level status KPI over here that'll show you the overall status. You can also drill in by route, and we'll actually show on the map by the marker indicator which are completed and which are not. So you can see there are icons on the map with check marks that show completed stops versus outstanding stops. And then the second question I hear a lot is it possible to pilot the app with a subset of my drivers? Can I have one or two drivers try this out before I unleash this on my whole workforce? And the answer is yes, absolutely. You can have as many drivers as you want to try this out and provide feedback. So we're really excited about the ILR, and we're excited about people using it. And the more people use it, the better data we'll get as well for your specific CSA to inform those dwell time estimates that we're modeling to be even more accurate with routing going forward. So,
hey, Nels, can we see, if we're in the manager portal, can't we see the sequencing numbers? Can we show them what that looks like?
Yeah, let me go ahead
on the map.
Particular route here. Let's look at a particular route. Yes, there's sequencing numbers. Yep.
Okay, so we're always in the loop about where our guys are, when they're expected back, all those sorts of things, and when they'll be at a particular stop. So, yes. Thanks for running everybody through the turn by turn. I think one of the really great things is we've sort of soft sold you on what 15% means, but putting 15% less miles into view, like what matters to you, which is really the finances of what does 15% fewer miles mean. The first time that we ran that number of 50% in the FedEx world with the FedEx type trucks that are out there, gas was at about 3.25. At 3.25, the savings of reducing your miles by 15% was a little over $100 a day. And as everybody I'm sure is painfully aware, gas is no longer at $3.25 a gallon. So that number is only going to go up. And I would suspect that right now you're probably in the neighborhood of $150 to some places $200 a day in reduced operating costs just by removing 15% miles. That's not even taking into account some of the things that GroundSwell is capable of doing, which is eliminating a route each day. We've had several people who joined our first webinar last month, and they have since then reduced a route every day, and in some cases 2 routes a day. There'll be more on that. We'll let you meet her next time, and some of the others too. But I think the initial route construction is great, but this infinite loop routing, the turn by turn, will be the solution to really help the system learn more about how you do business and about how it can reduce your operating costs. Tony's going to cover a subject that's really important to all of us. So we want to make sure we have time to do that. So without further ado, Toni, I'm going to kick it over to you so you can talk about the great kind of people that people should be hiring.
Yes, my favorite people to hire, which is veterans. So thank you guys from GroundSwell. And I just want to give a shout out to GroundSwell because they have recently offered, in lieu of Memorial Day, a 10% discount to any ISP who is a veteran. And so 5% actually goes towards the service fee that you would pay for GroundSwell's product. And then the other 5% goes to a charity of your choice. There's 2 options. One is called Waypoint Vets, and the other one is called Tunnels to Towers. So one builds houses for homeless veterans. That's the Tunnel to Towers. And then the Waypoint Vet helps veterans that are dealing with like PTSD or trauma in some capacity that they experienced while serving our great nation. So anyway, just wanted to give a shout out to GroundSwell for offering that incentive. And I love that you guys are trying to be veteran forward in your initiatives. So let me pull up my screen and share this with you guys. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Can everyone see this? I think you can. Okay, cool. So here's some numbers and statistics up here, but what do they mean, right? So I'm gonna try to speed through this. We don't have a lot of time, but let's get into it. So every single year, 200,000 men and women leave the military. It's a lot of people. They've spent years operating under pressure, leading teams, maintaining equipment, and executing complex missions with tight timelines and literally zero margin for error. They're disciplined, they're reliable, they are mission focused. And right now, most of them are looking for their next career. So at the same time, interesting enough, contractors across the network are telling me the same thing over and over. As the owner of a recruiting company and somebody who's done hiring for, golly, the last 14 years, I continuously hear, I can't find drivers, I can't find managers, I can't find diesel technicians. And then subsequently, when I do find them, the turnover is killing me. And that's not a talent shortage. That is an awareness problem. And it's not your fault, you know, because you don't know what you don't know exists. And it has taken me, you know, the better part of 10 years to learn that all of these programs are out there and exist and are available for you, a lot of them free. So hopefully that awareness issue ends today. And so I want to put some numbers on this so it's not just a feel-good story, it actually makes sense, right? In a meaningful way. So veterans retain at 68% after 12 months. So compared to the industry average of 50%, which is great. So if you hire 10 people and 7 people stay instead of 5, that's 2 fewer recruiting cycles that you have to go through, 2 fewer training investments, 2 fewer gaps in your operation every single time. And then for the 30%, that's 30% lower turnover compared to non-veteran hires. And veteran unemployment sits at 3%, which means these candidates are getting hired. The only question is whether you're hiring them or not. So If you look at those traits on the right side, we have mission focused, we have reliable leadership experience, we have safety culture, thrives under pressure. And those aren't just like personality traits, right? Those are operational advantages baked in by years of military training that you did not have to pay for, but that you do get to benefit from. So you're not hoping that they show up on time. You are actually hiring someone who literally would go to prison for not showing up as part of their contract and agreement. So the point of the slide is simple. This is a business decision. It is not a charity decision. Hiring veterans makes your operation more stable, it makes it more reliable, and it makes it more profitable. And these are facts. So I just wanted to state that. That's the why. Now let's talk about the where, because I want you to see exactly how military experience maps to the specific roles that are within the FedEx industry. One of the biggest misconceptions that I hear from contractors is that veterans sound great, but like, do I have to retrain them? They've been in the military for so long. I don't want to train them from scratch. Like, I don't know how they're going to do. Do they have the right experience? So what I want to do right now is put that to rest because the military has already done the training for you, which I previously stated, but I can't overstate enough. So I want to walk through this table row by row because I want it to click and make sense for you. And you don't have to understand this, but just, I mean, like, you don't have to like know all the acronyms and military background terminology, but I want it to make sense as to why it lends itself for them being the right fit for specific roles within the FedEx industry. So CDL drivers, home delivery drivers, those can be 88M transportation specialists. These are people who drove heavy vehicles in convoy, often in high stress environments, often at night, often in really harsh conditions that make FedEx ground routes look like a Sunday drive, truly. And they are licensed operators with a safety mindset. So they're not starting from zero as a brand new driver. They have tons and tons of experience. And if they have driven 18-wheelers overseas or as part of their duties, they certainly can drive like a P1000, P1200, whatever else is on your fleet. Ops managers. These are officers and previous senior NCOs. And why this is important is because they have managed anywhere from teams of 20 to 50 to even 200 people. And they have controlled multi-million-dollar equipment budgets. They've executed complex logistics and short timelines where, you know, failure had real consequences like life or death, not to make it morbid, but basically they're ready to run for you and they're not scared and they're ready to help run your drivers and make them safe while they're out there. Then we have BCs, which is probably one of our biggest asks besides drivers from our contractors. And these could be previous warrant officers, or senior NCOs. These are people that were in the military who kept everything kind of coordinated when things went sideways. They're good at making decisions. They're good with ambiguity, which we know that FedEx is really great at. There's a ton of ambiguity, but they are good at managing competing priorities. And so that's literally our job description. And that seems very similar to what we ask our BCs to do on a daily basis. Deal with competing priorities and ambiguity, right? So then we have diesel technicians. Not all of you guys are big enough to need diesel techs or mechanics, but 91B mechanics are trained to a zero defect standard. Mechanical failure isn't an inconvenience in the military, it's a mission failure or worse. And so that mentality carries over when they're coming to work for you. And then admin back office can be 42A, finance specialists. And I just wanted you guys to know that, like, when you're seeing this, like on their, when you're seeing this on their resume, this is what translates. And now they have all kinds of apps where you can Google this and learn this. And then safety and compliance, you guys don't really hire a ton of that unless like you're in the line haul space, but military, police, and logistic leaders can help with that. So every role you're currently struggling to fill has a different military equivalent, and veterans aren't a different kind of candidate. They're a better prepared one. So moving to the next slide really quickly, I want to show you how the single best tool available to access this talent, and I mean this completely sincerely, It's free, it's government funded, and most contractors don't even know it exists, and it's called SkillsBridge. So SkillsBridge is a program that I want you to picture for a second. Imagine that you could bring a candidate, like a driver, a BC, a diesel tech, to come and work in your operation, have them work alongside your team for up to 6 months, and see how they perform in real situations. And then the entire time, the US government pays for their salary. You pay literally nothing except your BC or your time to train them on the job that they're going to be doing. And if they're great at the end of the internship, then you hire them. If it's not a fit, then you guys both go your own way. They learned a civilian job, you got free employment that was paid by the government for 180 days of service. And it's a really, really great program. There is no cap on the number of SkillBridge interns that you can bring on. A larger contractor or a contractor that's in multiple terminals could run literally as many interns across different roles simultaneously. The candidates who apply for SkillBridge are motivated. They've made the decision to transition out of the military into civilian life. So they're looking for a job where they can learn those skill sets that are applicable to what they had previously done within the military scope. And they're actively trying to build a civilian career. So if you do one thing after this webinar, I would say go to SkillsBridge and register as a partner to be an employer for their program. So the next slide, SkillsBridge is the crown jewel. It's not the only free resource available. Here's kind of like the full picture and how they rank. We will share all of this. I know that we ran out of time pretty much, but we will share all of this in our Slack channel. So if you want access to learn about how to go to SkillsBridge, how to leverage hiring our heroes, the DOL vets, this is a great resource for you guys. And then I'll come back to the slide, but I just want to show you, these are kind of like my next steps that I would propose to anybody that's looking to become veteran ready and veteran forward and trying to hire veterans. These are like the platforms you can use. These are just different programs that Bright Flag has used. And then additional on slide 6 and 7, these are different hiring companies. Some are for-profit, some are nonprofit, some are competing recruiting companies like what we do, but they're specifically geared for hiring veterans. And they're really, really great resources. Some of them are just like lead generation platforms that you can leverage to find leads for CDL drivers or home delivery drivers. So these are great resources, but I just want to back up for 1 second. Hiring Our Heroes is a great free veteran recruiting and hiring service. You can post on their website and they basically go out to the bases and put people in their system that are interested in moving into civilian life. And then number 3 is the DOL vets. This is the Department of Labor. This is their veteran employment and training program. So every region in the country has a regional veteran employment coordinator called an RVEC, and their entire job is to help employers like you guys connect with veteran talent. They know your local market, they have relationship with the bases in your area, and they can connect you with federal incentives and programs that you may not even know exist. And so I'll link the URL for that as well. And then the 4th one, which is really important, is troops and transportation. This is more specifically for CDL, although they do have people that have gotten their CDL that go back into just driving, straight truck or something that doesn't require the CDL, or maybe like a Class B. So I want to flag this one specifically for this audience because it's probably the most industry relevant resource on the list. It's a veteran-focused CDL pipeline, and they are transitioning service members who are already pursuing transportation careers. So they're already going to come with a accredited school. They also have a DD-214, which you guys can use as driving experience, even if it was overseas. All you have to do is turn the DD-214 to First Advantage. That counts as their experience. And then they just have to get a superior that they drove for to verify the credentials. I did it for the last 8 years with Bright Flag, and it was a great resource that most contractors didn't know. And it just opened up an entire pool of candidates that most people aren't even thinking about trying to go after. And I believe Indeed also has an option where you can search for resumes based on them being veterans. And if you pay for like $100 for like 50 credits. If you look at a resume and it has a veteran on it, those are unlimited. So like they don't count towards your credits. So that's another good option if you're looking at hiring veterans. So anyway, I just want to say, like, this is probably the most important thing that I have come into as being a recruiting owner, watching having the opportunity to watch veterans and service members get jobs right after they come out of service and not have to go through all the chaos and craziness of trying to find something. It doesn't just make you feel good, but it also adds value to your company. And I've seen it work across the board for all of my clients. And so anyway, I just wanted you guys to know about this. I thought it was important. GroundSwell was nice enough to let me come on and talk about it. And so, yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Well, Toni, I think one of the things that really resonates with me is, one, you're not just doing something for somebody else. When you're hiring veterans, you're doing something for your own company, right? Like you're benefiting from bringing that person on. And I think one of the things you've mentioned a lot about GroundSwell and the value it has is that you don't have to be FedEx oriented to be able to utilize the benefits of GroundSwell and to deploy GroundSwell in an operation. So the combination of a software like ours and a team full of people that are highly qualified veterans is really a good start, jump start to everything. I want to be cognizant of the time. It's 2:00. I want to answer Jordana's question really quickly. Are we offering this to replace GroundCloud? I think there are some significant ways in which GroundSwell does replace GroundCloud, to the extent that it provides a 15% mile reduction, a time reduction on your shifts. It does allow for resequencing where no other software on the market, in the turn-by-turn market, offers a resequencing, an automated resequencing that's AI driven. Those are patents that Rising Tide has filed, and we're proud of the work that we've done. So do we offer safety? No, there's a lot of people that do offer safety. And in this day and age, there are also a lot of AI solutions for safety too. And that might just be a webinar subject that we'll bring up another time. But there are lots of ways in which we can help facilitate the community getting better. And we're excited to be able to provide them to everybody. We're grateful that you spent time with us today. Join us on Slack. You'll get an email after this encouraging you to do that. Come by for free. It doesn't cost you anything. You get to be part of the conversations. You can DM any of us. We'd love to help you grow your business. Thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing you next time.